In a rural area of Delhi, India, 11 members of the Chandawat family lived in the same house. The family was known for being kind and respectful neighbors. The neighbors were used to seeing them every day, watching Lalit and Bhavnesh open their shops, their children going to school, and sensing the activity of the housewives at home. But July 1st, 2018 was different. The family was silent, so the neighbors decided to check on them. 3 of them went to the house and knocked on the door, but no one answered. They waited for a moment and knocked again, but there was still no response. After pushing the door, they realized it had not been locked at all. They entered the house hesitantly and found no one downstairs, nor was there any movement. They went upstairs, and what they saw was hard to comprehend. They froze in place for a moment and then fled the house in terror. After this incident, they knew they would never forget what they saw as long as they lived. The Chandawat family members, all of them from the youngest to the oldest, were gone in a strange, frightening, and terrifying manner. Hello, I'm Dora. For those of you new to my channel, I talk about real crimes and discuss terrifying topics, sometimes narrating stories and sometimes covering real events. Don't forget to subscribe and activate notifications on my channel. My dream is to reach 100,000 subscribers this year, so I hope for your support. Let's begin. On July 1st, 2018, in a rural area of Delhi, India, 3 local residents noticed that the nearby grocery store hadn't opened. This was unusual because the grocery store, owned by the Chandawat family, was always opened early in the morning. The family, consisting of 11 members, lived in the same house. 2 family members were not with them at the time, but they were known to open their shops at 5:30 a.m. every day. When the locals saw that the shop hadn't opened, they sensed something was wrong. They thought the family might be unwell, so they called them, but there was no response. They decided to visit the house. When they arrived, they knocked on the door, but no one answered. The place was quiet, and after trying to open the door, they found it was unlocked, as mentioned in the introduction of this video. They entered the house, calling out to the family, but there was no response. The 3 neighbors looked around, surprised by the silence in the house. Since they found no one on the ground floor, they went upstairs. There, they saw the entire family hanging from the ceiling with ropes around their necks, forming a circle. The neighbors ran out, terrified, unable to speak or comprehend the sight they had seen, with most of them crying. They called the police, who arrived and saw the scene inside. Even the police officers realized it was likely one of the worst crimes they had ever seen and probably would ever see in their lives. After inspecting the house, they confirmed that 9 of the hanged family members were forming a circle, while the 10th was hanging in front of them. The grandmother's body was found in her room, also hanged, but not suspended. There were marks on her neck from a belt, but she was on the floor. All of them had their limbs bound, and the children's mouths were taped shut, with cotton in their ears. The only survivor was their dog, tied up on the roof, the same roof from which they had hanged themselves. The family was known among the neighbors as good people with no significant problems. Their aim in life was to expand their shops or businesses. Their businesses had been growing, attracting more customers. They had several grocery stores and a second shop for timber and similar items. Their children were also excellent in school and improving steadily. Just 2 weeks before this event, they had celebrated their daughter Priyanka's engagement. How did this happen? Why? Essentially, no family would die in this manner unless there was someone with a grudge who entered the house and killed them in this strange way, or perhaps a group of people, a gang or something like that. So, Was this some sort of revenge for something in the past? But the way they were arranged didn't make any sense. If someone hated them and sought revenge, why not just kill them and leave them as they were without torture? The officer overseeing this investigation said this was the strangest crime scene he had ever seen, primarily because there was no evidence, no sign of forced entry into the house, indicating it was unlikely an outsider. If the incident was a robbery, all the women in the house were wearing their jewelry, and nothing was stolen from the house. At the same time, they were bound, and their eyes and mouths were covered, indicating that someone had done this terrifying act to them. They began examining surveillance cameras and inspecting anything around the house and the entire area, which was quite large. After struggling for hours, it became clear that something was indeed wrong. No one had broken into the house, which was very strange. It is impossible for 11 people from 3 generations of one family to commit suicide or kill themselves in this manner, even if you know who the killer in the case is. Why did this happen? In this way, it is extremely heartbreaking. The Indian public was shocked by this case, and the media was talking about it. One of the theories that emerged accused the daughter of the person who built the house for this family, suggesting that it might be related to something like witchcraft or similar rituals. These were baseless accusations, but people were desperate for an answer. They also pointed out that there were pipes or pipe openings next to or behind the house. There were 11 pipes, and people noted that the number of family members in the house was 11. 7 of the pipes were bent downward, which corresponded to the number of women in the house, while 4 of the pipes were straight, corresponding to the number of men. People began to find any evidence to explain what happened. Was this a coincidence, or was there some truth to it? The bodies were then transferred to the forensic analysis department, where it was determined that the cause of death was hanging, not anything else, and due to the presence of waste in their bodies, it was concluded they had not been under psychological stress before their deaths. It was like any other night. They were living their lives and having dinner. However, there were signs of ritualistic practices. This family might have believed in supernatural phenomena because this mass suicide resembled cult practices, such as Heaven's Gate, where all members poisoned or killed themselves, leaving no survivors. Another similar incident was with a cult called Jonestown, where everyone committed suicide. This theory seemed somewhat plausible, as surveillance footage showed family members, specifically Tina, Lalit's wife, and their son Shivan, buying plastic chairs from stores. These were the same chairs used in the suicide. There was also a video of the 2 young men opening Lalit's shop and taking several items that were used in the suicide. After an exhaustive search of the house, they found 11 diaries and 11 notebooks, all featuring the number 1111 repeatedly. These diaries and notebooks dated back to 2007, after the death of Bhopal Singh, the father and head of the family. The last entry was on the day before their suicide in 2018, containing orders and instructions on how to perform those strange rituals. These instructions were supposedly coming from Bhopal Singh, who had died in 2007, yet continued to give them instructions. Bhopal Singh was the father of 3 children, one of whom was not mentioned in the story because he did not live with them. He was the eldest, followed by Bhavnesh and Lalit. Bhopal Singh was the leader of this family and responsible for many of their business affairs. It is said that he was a kind person who truly loved and cared for his family. After his death in 2007, Bhopal left a significant void in the family, which his youngest son, Lalit, tried to fill. Lalit became the head of the family, but there was a small problem. He had been in an accident in 1988 while riding his bike, which caused a head injury. His friends were surprised to see changes in his behavior and conduct. In 2004, he had a dispute with his manager at work, leading to a terrible incident where he was locked in a room in the building where he worked, and they set it on fire. They intended to kill him, but he managed to survive, though he suffered severe consequences. He was beaten badly before being thrown into the room and inhaled a lot of smoke. It is said that this incident caused him to lose his voice. Before his father's death in 2007, his father had suggested that they perform Hindu rituals such as Hanuman Chalisa, a prayer recited aloud by a group, based on the belief that someone could recover if they were sick or something similar. They did not perform these rituals at first. After Bhopal's death, they gathered one day and decided to pray. His voice did not return during their first attempt, but it returned after a year. They kept up with these sessions, not daily, but regularly. After his voice returned, they noticed something strange. It wasn't his voice, but Bhopal's, their father's voice. According to the diaries, Lalit claimed that their father Bhopal visited him in his dreams. From that moment, Lalit told them that their father's spirit was speaking through him, guiding them and giving them instructions on everything they did daily, including when to go out, when to come back, what to eat and drink, and the rituals they should continuously perform. Bhopal, through Lalit, visited them every Tuesday, Thursday, and Saturday. They began noticing improvements in their lives, their business expanded, their children got higher grades, and their health improved because they followed his instructions and commands. Everything was progressing. These successes meant a lot to the family and increased their belief that Bhopal was genuinely guiding them through Lalit. It became easy for them to follow and believe in these instructions until the day he told them about the banyan tree ritual, which was essentially their collective suicide after a week of preparations. On July 1st, 2000, at 1 in the morning, the entire family, 3 generations together, committed suicide. The strange part was that 2 weeks before, in the same place where they killed themselves, they were celebrating Priyanka's engagement, one of their daughters. How could a family be ready to celebrate their daughter's engagement while planning to kill themselves 2 weeks later? According to the instructions in the diary, it was hinted that the purpose of this ritual was not suicide, but what would come after. Lalit was convinced that after their deaths, their souls would return to their bodies thanks to Bhopal, who would descend and free them or something similar. During the engagement party, some people noticed unusual behavior in Lalit. He was more introverted than usual, and some believed he was anxious about the engagement because he feared losing control. If Priyanka married and left, she might reveal the family's secrets, including the rituals and practices they were involved in, and people would realize something was wrong in that house. They said that after the incidents he experienced, Lalit started suffering from PTSD and also from psychosis or hallucinations. His conversations with his deceased father resulted from these hallucinations, but unfortunately, the entire family believed him, especially after the successes they achieved. This condition is known as bipolar psychosis. The symptoms of psychosis and hallucinations that Lalit suffered from were transferred to the family, making them believe more in what he said and accept anything he told them. The family experienced shared hallucinations, where Lalit's condition spread to the entire family, leading them to believe in it more and accept anything he said. No one knew exactly the dynamics within the house, or whether they truly believed in it, or were afraid that something bad might happen. Many questions remained unanswered. The diary revealed some things, but in the end, their blind trust in Lalit led them to perform the banyan tree ritual, during which they all committed suicide, and their bodies were arranged in a frightening manner resembling a tree. This ritual aimed to mimic the shape of a banyan tree, as they believed that their suicide was not the end. The sole survivor, their dog, was unable to speak and died from the severe shock 3 weeks after the incident. This concludes the story of the Barari family, or the Chundawat family. I hope you found the video interesting. Honestly, I don't think I've ever read a story worse than this, nor any real-life topic more harrowing. I tried to avoid the gruesome details throughout my research. Don't forget to subscribe to see all the new content and press the like button. Stay tuned for a new story every week.